History often tells us stories that are widely known, but sometimes other histories are hidden just beneath the surface, waiting to be understood. One of these stories is about the ancient Hebrew people. These are the people we read about in the story of Moses, who were held as slaves in the land of Egypt for a very long time. They were known as the descendants of Jacob, who was also called Israel, and his 12 sons. These 12 sons became the founders of the famous 12 tribes of Israel. This group of people had a unique and powerful identity, bound together by their shared faith, their laws, and their incredible story of survival and liberation. Their journey is one of the oldest and most influential stories ever told. Their escape from Egypt is a central event in their history, a powerful tale of freedom led by their prophet Moses. After crossing the Red Sea and wandering in the desert for 40 years, they received their laws from God and eventually settled in the land promised to them. For centuries, they built a kingdom with famous rulers like King David and King Solomon. However, their history was also marked by division and conquest. Foreign empires, like the Assyrians and the Babylonians, conquered their lands and scattered their people far from their home. This scattering, known as a diaspora, was the beginning of a long and complicated journey that would take the Hebrew people to every corner of the known world. This scattering meant that the 12 tribes began to move in different directions, seeking safety and new places to live. Over many centuries, they established communities in various parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and eventually into Europe. Their travels were not always easy. They often faced persecution and were forced to move again and again. Yet they held on to their traditions and their beliefs, adapting to new cultures while trying to preserve their own unique heritage. This constant movement is key to understanding how their story connects to many different places and peoples across the globe, creating a complex web of history that is still being uncovered today. The story of their wanderings is therefore not just a tale of being lost, but also a story of incredible resilience. As they moved, they carried their culture with them, influencing the places they settled and being influenced in return. Their journey is a testament to the strength of human spirit and the desire to maintain one's identity against all odds. Understanding this ancient journey is the first step to piecing together a bigger puzzle, one that connects these ancient people to later events in world history, including those that would unfold much later in countries like the Netherlands. This foundation is essential for exploring the hidden connections that have shaped our modern world in ways we are only just beginning to fully appreciate. As centuries passed, many of the scattered Hebrew people found their way into the Iberian Peninsula, which includes modern-day Spain and Portugal. Here, they lived for a long time, contributing to a rich and diverse culture. However, this period of relative peace would not last forever. A new chapter in their history began with the rise of a powerful group known as the Moors. The Moors were dark-skinned people who came from North Africa and ruled over large parts of Spain and Portugal for over 700 years. According to some historical interpretations, many of these Moors were themselves descendants of the ancient Hebrew tribes who had settled in Africa after being scattered from their original homeland. These Moors established a very advanced society in Europe, known for its achievements in science, mathematics, and art. During their rule, cities like Cordoba and Granada became centers of learning and culture, attracting scholars from all over the world. The theory that connects the Moors to the Hebrews suggests that these rulers were not just followers of Islam, but also carried the bloodline of the ancient tribes of Israel. This view proposes that their dark skin was a reflection of their ancient origins, tying them directly to the people described in the Bible. This connection is a critical piece of the puzzle, suggesting a Hebrew presence in Europe that was both powerful and distinct. Eventually, the rule of the Moors in Spain and Portugal came to an end. In 1492, Christian kingdoms reconquered the land in what was called the Reconquista. After this, both the Moors and the Jewish people who had lived there for centuries were faced with a terrible choice: convert to Christianity or be expelled from the land. Many refused to give up their beliefs and were forced to flee. These refugees, who some historians argue were descendants of the Hebrew tribes, scattered once again. They sought refuge in various places, including the Ottoman Empire in the east and, importantly, in the Netherlands to the north. which was known for being more tolerant at the time. This migration brought a new wave of people with Hebrew ancestry into Northern Europe. They brought with them their knowledge, their skills, and their unique history. In the Netherlands, they became part of a growing community of people who were seeking freedom from persecution. This part of the story is crucial because it sets the stage for the next chapter, the involvement of the Netherlands in the transatlantic slave trade. The arrival of these dark-skinned people, identified by some as Hebrews, coincided with a period of great global change, and their fate would become intertwined with the dark history of slavery that was about to unfold on a massive scale. The Netherlands in the 16th and 17th centuries was becoming a major global power, with its influence stretching across the oceans. This period, often called the Dutch Golden Age, was also a time when the nation became heavily involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Dutch ships sailed to Africa, captured millions of people, and transported them to colonies in the Americas to work on plantations. A controversial theory connects this history to the Hebrew people who had fled Spain and Portugal. This theory suggests that many of the people captured and enslaved were, in fact, the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel who had settled across Africa over the centuries. They were people with dark skin who were often called Negroes. This perspective reframes the history of slavery, viewing it not just as an economic system, but as the continuation of the scattering and persecution of the Hebrew people. According to this belief, the slave trade was a fulfillment of ancient prophecies that described a people who would be taken away on ships and sold as slaves. From this viewpoint, Dutch involvement was not just a business venture, but a significant event in the long and tragic history of the Hebrew diaspora. The immense suffering of the enslaved is seen as a direct link to the curses described in ancient texts for a people who were scattered from their homeland. This history of slavery has left deep marks on Dutch culture, and some traditions are now being re-examined in this light. One of the most debated traditions is the celebration of Sinterklaas. In this festival, St. Nicholas arrives with his helper, known as Zwarte Piet, or Black Pete. For centuries, Black Pete has been portrayed by white people in blackface, with exaggerated red lips and a curly wig. While many see this as a harmless children's tradition, a growing number of people view it as a painful and racist caricature that glorifies a past of slavery. They argue that the character of Black Pete is a demeaning depiction that echoes the dehumanizing way black people were seen during the era of slavery. The debate over Zwarte Piet highlights how the past is never truly gone. Those who criticize the tradition see it as a reflection of a society that has not fully come to terms with its role in the slave trade. They argue that celebrating a character like Black Pete is a way of ignoring the immense pain that this history caused and continues to cause. For them, the character is a symbol of a time when people with dark skin were not seen as equals, but as property or servants. This controversy shows that the legacy of slavery is not just in history books. It is alive in the cultural practices that continue to this day, sparking important conversations about identity, respect, and history. The process of enslavement was designed to strip people of their identity, and one of the most powerful ways this was done was by changing their names. Many of the enslaved people from Africa had names that reflected their culture and their faith. Some historical theories suggest that many original Hebrew names contain the element Yah, which is a short form of the name of God, Yahweh. Names like Elijah or Zechariah were common. When these individuals were captured and sold, their slave traders took away their ancestral names and replaced them with new ones. This act was a deliberate attempt to erase their past and break their connection to their families and their heritage. The new names given to the enslaved were often simple, common European names, or sometimes they were given the last name of the person who owned them. This meant that an enslaved person could be named after the very trader or plantation owner who held them in bondage. This practice created a painful legacy where, for generations, the descendants of the enslaved carried the names of the families that had enslaved their ancestors. This loss of their original names was a profound and lasting trauma, a constant reminder of the power dynamics of slavery. The search for original pre-slavery names is, for many people today, a way of reclaiming a lost part of their identity. The belief that the 12 tribes of Israel were scattered and are now found among modern black populations is a central idea for many who are piecing together this hidden history. This theory connects the descriptions of the ancient Hebrews to the physical characteristics and historical experiences of people in the African diaspora. It proposes that the people known as Negroes or Creoles in the Americas are the direct descendants of the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, among others. This belief provides a powerful sense of identity and a historical narrative that stretches back thousands of years, offering an explanation for centuries of suffering and a hope for future redemption. This history continues to resonate in the modern world in very visible ways. For instance, it is a documented fact that some schools, streets, and even companies in the Netherlands and elsewhere are named after figures who were known slave traders, or who profited from the slave trade. This creates a difficult situation where the very institutions of society honor individuals who were responsible for immense human suffering. The ongoing debates about changing these names are part of a larger effort to confront this difficult past. History is not just a story about what happened long ago. It shapes our present reality, from our names and traditions to the very names of the places where we live and learn.